What you're about to hear is more than just a love story. This is a journey into the darkest corners of trust, identity, and the truths we hide behind perfect smiles. A beautiful woman from the Philippines crossed thousands of miles to find love in Texas, only to discover that some secrets are more dangerous than any distance. What happens when a dream marriage turns into a nightmare on the wedding night itself? This true story will make you think, so hit that like button and let's uncover the truth together. And don't forget to subscribe, because we bring you the most incredible stories that will forever change the way you see the world.
Blake Morrison, a 38-year-old Texan, was the epitome of stability and tradition. As an oil rig supervisor, his life was defined by grueling work schedules and the conservative values of the Beaumont area. After a bitter divorce 3 years prior from his high school sweetheart, Blake's world had shrunk to his job, cold beers, and an empty house. His mother, Martha, a stern woman, constantly urged him to find a good woman and settle down. But Blake was tired of superficial dating. His heart yearned for something real, a deep connection he thought he'd never find. Until Celeste Santos appeared on his computer screen. Celeste, a 28-year-old nurse from Manila, Philippines, was like a breath of fresh air in Blake's monotonous life. In her photos, he saw a stunning woman with long, dark hair and eyes as warm as the tropical sun. But it was her soul that truly captivated him. Over 2 years of online chats and hours-long video calls, Blake fell in love with Celeste's intelligence, kindness, and traditional values. She never asked for money and always spoke of her dream of building a family. To Blake, she was the embodiment of everything he sought in a wife. His buddies on the rig often teased him about his mail-order bride, warning him of scams. But Blake brushed them off. He knew Celeste was different. He believed their love was destiny. After Blake sent money for a plane ticket, Celeste secured a fiancé visa. They had 90 days to marry under U.S. law. On August 15, 2023, Blake stood in Houston's International Airport, his heart pounding in his chest. He had waited so long for this moment. And then, there she was. Celeste was even more beautiful in person, with a radiant smile and a graceful presence. Their first hug was electric, as if two missing puzzle pieces had finally found each other after a long journey. When Celeste whispered, "I can't believe I'm finally here with you," Blake felt a certainty he'd never known. He just held her tighter and said, "Welcome home, beautiful. Welcome to Texas." He had no idea that the woman he had just welcomed into his life was carrying a secret that could destroy everything they were building together. Celeste's first few weeks in Beaumont were like a fairy tale. Blake took time off work to help her settle into her new life. He showed her around the small town, bought her new clothes, and introduced her to the local culture. Blake's 3-bedroom house, compared to Celeste's tiny Manila apartment, felt like a palace. She was amazed by the open space and the quiet of the suburbs. Celeste quickly proved to be the perfect partner. She was a talented cook, blending exotic Filipino dishes with the classic American recipes Blake's mother gave her. She was always eager to please Blake, kept the house meticulously, and showed a sweet, genuine affection that melted Blake's calloused heart. Celeste's first test was meeting Martha, Blake's mother. Martha was a sharp and skeptical woman who had heard too many stories of foreign women using American men for a green card. At first, she kept her distance, watching Celeste with a careful eye. But Celeste's respect, polite demeanor, and obvious love for Blake gradually won the tough woman over. Celeste often went to Martha's flower shop to help out unasked, and her hard work made a strong impression. "That girl was raised right," Martha admitted to Blake, "and she looks at you like you're her whole world. Just make sure she isn't hiding anything from you." Her warning, though an offhand comment, unknowingly touched upon a truth no one could have ever expected. The couple quickly began the paperwork to get married. They set the date for October 12, just before Celeste's visa expired. Blake had originally wanted a simple courthouse ceremony, but Celeste dreamed of a church wedding with white flowers and a beautiful gown. To make her happy, Blake agreed to a larger celebration. He was proud of his beautiful bride-to-be and wanted to show his happiness to the world. Throughout this time, Blake completely respected Celeste's wish to save herself for their wedding night. To him, this only affirmed her precious traditional values. Their intimacy was limited to holding hands and goodnight kisses at the door of Celeste's guest room. Together, they painted a picture of a perfect future, a family with 2 children, Blake's own company, and a bigger house. Their life seemed to be a fairy tale coming true.
As the wedding day approached, a subtle shift began in Celeste. While she was always smiling and sweet, Blake noticed moments where she seemed distant and anxious. Sometimes, in the middle of a conversation, her gaze would drift into the distance, and she would flinch slightly at his touch. When he asked if anything was wrong, she would just shake her head, saying that she was just excited and a little stressed with the wedding planning. Blake chalked it up to normal pre-wedding jitters compounded by the pressure of adjusting to a whole new country and culture. He didn't know that beneath her calm exterior, a fierce internal storm was raging. Celeste's anxiety peaked on the day of her mandatory medical exam to finalize her immigration paperwork. Blake offered to drive her, but she insisted on going alone. At the clinic of Dr. Patricia Hernandez, a physician with over 20 years of experience, Celeste's nervousness became undeniable. Her hands trembled as she filled out the medical forms, and she was unusually hesitant. Dr. Hernandez, bound by doctor-patient confidentiality, couldn't reveal anything to Blake. But what she discovered during the exam compelled her to have a long, serious conversation with Celeste. She stressed the importance of honesty in a marriage and the legal and personal consequences of hiding critical information. Celeste left the clinic in tears, knowing that the foundation of the new life she was building was about to crumble. Meanwhile, Blake's friends, especially his best friend Tommy, continued to voice their concerns. "Do you really know this girl?" Tommy asked during Blake's bachelor party. 2 years of video calls isn't the same as living with someone. Blake angrily dismissed his concerns, defending Celeste fiercely. He had complete faith in their love. Deep down, however, he also recognized there were many small things about Celeste's past he didn't know. She rarely spoke in detail about her family or her childhood, always skillfully changing the subject. The weight of these unknowns was growing, but his love for her eclipsed any doubt. He had no idea the secret Celeste was hiding was bigger than anything he could possibly imagine. If you're on the edge of your seat, let us know in the comments below. Celeste and Blake's journey is about to take a fateful turn, and you won't want to miss it.
October 12th, their wedding day, was a perfect Texas autumn day. The sky was clear blue and the air was crisp. Blake woke up feeling like the luckiest man on earth. At St. Mary's Church, where his family had worshipped for generations, the air was filled with joy and anticipation. Friends and family from all over Beaumont had come to celebrate with Blake. He stood at the altar next to his best man, Tommy, his heart full. He couldn't wait to see Celeste in her wedding dress. In the bridal room, Celeste was fighting a terrible internal battle. Looking in the mirror, she saw a beautiful bride, but she also saw someone living a lie. The magnificent ivory wedding gown Blake had bought for her now felt like a costume for a part she was playing. Martha was by her side, helping her adjust her veil and fastening the family's heirloom pearl necklace. She kept complimenting Celeste's beauty and reassuring her that all brides get nervous. But Celeste's fear wasn't just jitters. It was the terror of someone who knew her happiness was built on a secret that was about to be exposed. When the wedding march began and the church doors opened, all eyes turned to Celeste. She was breathtaking, and Blake's own breath caught in his throat. As she walked down the aisle, every step felt as heavy as lead. Blake's loving and trusting gaze sent a sharp pain through her heart. She knew the truth would likely extinguish that joy in his eyes forever. The ceremony passed in a hazy dream. The pastor's words about honesty and trust in marriage felt like daggers in her heart. When it was her turn to say her vows, Celeste's voice trembled. She repeated the promises to love and cherish Blake until death do they part, all the while feeling like the world's biggest hypocrite. The weight of her deceit nearly brought her to her knees. They exchanged rings, and the pastor pronounced them husband and wife. Blake kissed his bride with a tender passion. In that moment, amid the applause, Celeste felt both supreme happiness and excruciating pain. The reception at Blake's house was a joyous affair. Celeste played the part of the happy newlywed perfectly, charming everyone with her grace and beauty. But inside, she was counting down the hours to the inevitable moment of truth. As the night wound down and the last guests left, they were finally alone in the beautifully decorated house. Blake turned to her, his eyes full of love. "I am the most beautiful bride I have ever seen," he said. "I can't believe you're finally my wife." But as he drew her into his arms, Celeste knew their fairy tale was about to end. After the guests were gone, Blake opened a bottle of champagne to celebrate. The air was thick with romance and anticipation. But to Celeste, it felt like the calm before the storm. She excused herself to the bedroom to change out of her wedding dress. Standing before the mirror, she saw the woman who had gotten everything she ever dreamed of, but who also knew it could all vanish in a matter of hours. She slipped into a silk robe, her heart hammering against her ribs. When she returned to the living room, Blake was waiting on the couch with a small velvet box. It was a gold bracelet engraved with their wedding date and the words, "My love, forever." As Blake fastened it around her wrist, Celeste felt the weight of his trust and love like invisible chains, knowing she was about to break them. They sat together, sipping champagne. Blake talked endlessly about their future, about the children they would have. Every word he spoke deepened Celeste's guilt. Finally, noticing her silence, Blake suggested they go to bed. He said gently that they didn't have to rush, that they had their whole lives ahead of them. His patience and respect only made her feel worse, but when he began to kiss her with growing passion, she knew she couldn't delay any longer. The physical intimacy of marriage would reveal her truth. It was time. Celeste gently pushed Blake away and sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling. "Blake," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "there's something very important about my past, something I never told you." Blake immediately recognized the gravity in her tone. He sat down beside her, taking her hands in his. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together," he said. The sincerity in his eyes almost made her break down. She took a deep breath, mustering all her courage. I'm transgender." The words hung in the air. Blake's face went completely blank. The silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating. He looked at her as if she'd just spoken a foreign language. Then, the confusion on his face slowly morphed into disbelief, and then horror, as the meaning of her words began to sink in. "Say that again?" he stammered. Through tears, Celeste explained that she was born in a male body but had always known she was a woman. She had undergone hormone therapy and surgery to align her body with her true self. She stressed that all her documents were legal and that her love for him was real. But Blake wasn't listening anymore. His world had just shattered. If this heartbreaking story is touching you, hit the like button to show your support for important true stories. And don't forget to subscribe, as we're committed to bringing you the most powerful stories that will stay with you long after you've finished watching. Blake shot to his feet, pacing the room and running his hands through his hair. The love and tenderness in his eyes were gone, replaced by a cold rage. "So you lied to me," he roared. "You made me a fool in front of everyone." Celeste tried to explain that this wasn't a deception, but an act of self-preservation, that she had been too terrified to tell the truth. But Blake was beyond reason. His fury exploded. He accused her of tricking him into marriage, of turning him gay without his knowledge, a profound misunderstanding of gender identity, but one that revealed his deep-seated fears about his own masculinity and social standing. The night devolved into a nightmare. Blake grew increasingly aggressive. He rifled through Celeste's personal belongings, searching for proof of her past. When he found her old passport with her birth name, he waved it in the air like a trophy and began calling her by that name, deliberately using male pronouns to hurt and dehumanize her. When Celeste tried to approach him to calm him down, he shoved her violently, causing her to stumble into a dresser, shattering their wedding photo. The sound of the breaking glass seemed to stun him for a moment, but instead of apologizing, he blamed her for making him do it. Celeste realized the man she loved was capable of physical violence. She began to fear for her safety. Blake didn't stop there. He started calling friends and family, telling them the truth about Celeste, painting her as a master manipulator. He threatened to post her personal documents and medication on social media to expose her to the community. He threatened to have the marriage annulled and report her to immigration. His rage had twisted into a cruel desire for revenge. For nearly 48 hours, Celeste was a prisoner in her own home. Blake hid her passport and threatened to call the police if she tried to leave. Isolated and terrified, Celeste knew she had to escape. At 3 a.m., when Blake was finally asleep, she snuck out of the house, grabbed the spare key to his truck, and drove off into the night, leaving behind the life she had once dreamed of. Celeste made her way to Houston, where she found help from transgender support organizations. She learned that Blake's threats could be prosecuted as a hate crime, but she decided not to press charges. She just wanted a fresh start. Blake, meanwhile, faced the consequences of his actions. Their story was picked up by local media, and he quickly became a social pariah. He lost his job, friends distanced themselves, and even his mother began to question her son's cruelty. Their marriage was annulled, and Blake had to sell the house and move away, living with his loneliness and regret. A year later, Celeste had rebuilt her life. She became a powerful advocate for transgender rights, using her story to educate others on the dangers her community faces. She eventually found true love with a man who accepted and cherished her for who she was, past and all. Celeste's story is a painful reminder of the cruelty of prejudice, but also a powerful testament to the strength of resilience and the ability to find hope in the darkest of nights. She had survived not only to tell her story, but to light the way for others still walking in the dark.